Steam rose from the pot as Jack Thompson lifted the lid, releasing the rich aroma of herbs and spices into his small Seattle restaurant. The morning sun painted golden streaks across the polished steel counters, but Jack wasn't alone in his kitchen today. Three tall figures stood watching him, their large eyes blinking in fascination as he stirred the soup. The aliens had arrived without warning 2 hours before opening time. They introduced themselves as food critics from the Galactic Council, though Jack found it hard not to chuckle at the idea. These beings, with their sleek environmental suits and translator devices, had traveled across the stars to taste his cooking. "You apply thermal energy to organic matter," the tallest one observed, its translator making the words sound flat and technical. "This is unusual in our experience." Jack nodded, adding a pinch of salt to his grandmother's chicken soup recipe. "We call it cooking," he said simply. "Been doing it for thousands of years." The three visitors exchanged glances, their head tentacles swaying gently. In the 6 months since Earth had made first contact, humans had learned that most advanced species had long ago switched to nutrient pastes or direct energy absorption. The art of cooking had been lost to the march of progress. But why spend time altering the chemical composition of nutrients? Another alien asked, this one with beautiful iridescent scales. "Surely direct consumption is more efficient." Jack poured the steaming soup into a bowl, the chunks of vegetables and chicken arranged just so. "Because," he said with a smile, "food isn't just about efficiency. Here, try this." The aliens hesitated before their leader stepped forward. Using a special adaptation device, it carefully tasted a spoonful of the soup. The reaction was immediate. Its eyes widened, all four of them, and its tentacles straightened in surprise. "There are memories in this taste," it said wonderingly. "I see images of family gatherings, of comfort, of home." The alien turned to its companions. "The humans have discovered something extraordinary." Over the next hour, Jack served them different dishes from his menu. Each bite seemed to amaze them more than the last. They were particularly struck by how he could take simple ingredients and transform them into something greater than the sum of their parts. "In all our travels," the scaled one said, "we have never encountered a species that puts such emotion into sustenance. Your people are unique in this regard." Jack was cleaning up when they made their offer. The Galactic Council was holding its centennial gathering, a massive event where species from across the galaxy would meet to share knowledge and culture. Earth, as a newly contacted world, had already been invited to send diplomatic representatives. But now, they wanted to add one more delegate to the list. "We believe your skills could spark a revolution in how the galaxy views sustenance," the lead critic explained. "Will you represent Earth's culinary arts at the gathering?" Jack looked around his small restaurant. The walls were lined with old family photos. His grandmother teaching him to cook, his first day of culinary school, the opening day of his restaurant. He'd always dreamed of sharing his passion for food with the world. Now he had a chance to share it with the galaxy. "When do we leave?" he asked. The aliens seemed pleased. Their tentacles swaying in what he'd learned was a sign of approval. As they left to make arrangements, Jack pulled out his grandmother's old recipe book from under the counter. Its pages were worn and stained, filled with handwritten notes and cooking wisdom passed down through generations. "Well, Grandma," he whispered, running his fingers over the faded cover, "looks like your recipes are going to the stars." Outside his restaurant window, the morning crowd was starting to gather. Regular customers who had no idea their favorite local chef was about to become humanity's first culinary ambassador to the stars. Jack smiled and began his preparations for the day. He had a feeling things were about to change, not just for him, but for every cook on Earth. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now, he had customers to feed. After all, that's what cooking was all about, sharing a taste of home with others, even if those others now included beings from across the galaxy. Jack's mouth fell open as he stepped off the transport ship. The Epicurean ring was massive, a gleaming silver hoop floating in space that could have wrapped around Earth's moon. Through the massive windows, he could see thousands of ships coming and going, each carrying delegates from different worlds. "Welcome to the gathering place," his guide said. The alien, who had asked to be called Blue due to its coloring, gestured with one of its 4 arms. "Your cooking station has been prepared according to Earth specifications." Jack clutched his bag of essential cooking tools closer. He'd been allowed to bring only a few items from Earth: his favorite knives, some basic spices, and his grandmother's recipe book. The rest would have to come from the station's supplies. As they walked through the station's main corridor, Jack noticed how different everyone's eating habits were. Some aliens absorbed glowing energy drinks, others consumed what looked like colorful paste from tubes, and a few seemed to photosynthesize directly under special lights. "Here is your preparation area," Blue announced, stopping at a gleaming workspace. It looked more like a science lab than a kitchen, with strange devices Jack had never seen before. But there was also a traditional stove and oven, specially installed for him. "The demonstration begins in 1 hour," Blue added. "Many species are eager to observe human cooking methods." Jack nodded, unpacking his tools. "Any particular restrictions I should know about?" "Foods that might be dangerous. All ingredients have been safety checked for all species," Blue assured him. "Though many delegates are puzzled by your request for raw materials." Jack smiled, examining the fresh vegetables and ingredients that had been provided. Most looked like Earth produce, though some had strange colors or shapes he'd never seen before. Sometimes the simplest things make the best meals. As he began to prep, a crowd gathered around his station. Beings of all shapes and sizes watched in fascination as he chopped vegetables and measured ingredients. He decided to make a risotto, something simple but flavorful that would show the basics of human cooking. "He's applying thermal energy to plant matter," one observer whispered loudly. "Look at the manual cutting process," another added. "Such precision without automation." Jack focused on his cooking, the familiar motions calming his nerves. The sound of rice toasting in the pan, the sizzle of garlic and onions, the gradual addition of warm broth. It was just like cooking at his restaurant, even if his audience was a bit more exotic. The aroma began to spread through the station. Jack noticed more and more delegates drifting toward his station, drawn by the smell. Many species didn't even have a sense of smell, but those that did were clearly intrigued. When the risotto was ready, Jack carefully plated small portions for tasting. The first brave delegate to try it was a tall, crystalline being who had to convert the food into energy before consuming it. "This is extraordinary," the being chimed, its crystal structure glowing brighter. The complex interaction of flavors, the texture variations, the way each component enhances the others. It's like science and art combined. Soon, a line formed at his station. Even species that couldn't eat solid food wanted to scan and analyze his cooking process. A group of food science researchers asked permission to record his techniques for study. "You see," Jack explained as he served another batch, "cooking isn't just about nutrients. It's about bringing people together, about creating something new from simple ingredients." By the end of the demonstration, Jack had served over 200 portions of risotto. His audience had grown from curious observers to enthusiastic fans, many asking when he would cook again. As he cleaned his station, the official-looking delegate approached. "Chef Thompson," the being said formally, "the council is impressed. We would like to invite you to participate in the Galactic Culinary competition. No human has ever competed before." Jack looked at his grandmother's recipe book, then at the eager faces around him. "Well," he said with a grin, "I did come all this way to cook." The word spread quickly through the station. The human chef would compete against the galaxy's most advanced food processors. Jack knew he was in for a challenge, but as he planned his next dish, he couldn't help but smile. Sometimes the old ways were the best ways, and he was ready to prove it to the entire galaxy. The preparation area buzzed with activity as 50 of the galaxy's finest culinary experts set up their stations. Jack watched in amazement as his competitors unpacked devices that looked more at home in a spaceship's engine room than a kitchen. There were molecular reconstructors, nutrient atomizers, and even what appeared to be a small fusion reactor for instant heating. "Your heating unit seems primitive," said a mechanical voice beside him. Jack turned to see a floating silver cube with multiple appendages. "Master Processor Unit 7, one of the favorites to win. You intend to use open flame?" "Sometimes the old ways work best," Jack replied, checking the temperature on his stove. He'd insisted on using traditional cooking equipment, though many thought he was crazy to do so. The competition's first round challenge was announced. Create a dish that showcased your civilization's highest culinary achievement. The competitors had 3 hours, while others began programming their machines or calibrating their molecular assemblers. Jack started by simply smelling his ingredients. The judges had provided both Earth standard and alien ingredients to each contestant. He picked up what looked like a purple carrot but smelled like citrus and smiled. This could work. Contestant Thompson is manually manipulating organic matter. The announcer's voice boomed across the arena, a technique not seen in high-level competition for over 10,000 years. The audience watched in fascination as Jack chopped, seared, and seasoned. The sound of his knife on the cutting board and the sizzle of the pan drew gasps of surprise. The smell of caramelizing onions and roasting spices began to fill this section of the arena. Next to him, Master Processor Unit 7 was creating perfectly spherical droplets of nutrient solution that floated in a geometric pattern. Another competitor had transformed their ingredients into a glowing gas that diners could absorb through their skin. "Such waste of energy," Jack heard one judge whisper as they passed his station. "The human is releasing heat and aromas into the air instead of focusing them into the food." But Jack knew better. He'd learned during his demonstrations that humans had something special, a combination of senses and instincts shaped by thousands of years of cooking with fire. He could smell when something was perfectly cooked, feel the right texture in a sauce, hear the exact moment when he needed to flip a piece of meat. As the cooking progressed, something unexpected happened. More and more spectators drifted toward his station, drawn by the aromas. Even species that couldn't eat solid food seemed fascinated by the process. "The human is performing thermal alchemy," one young alien observer told its parent excitedly. "Look how the proteins transform with heat." Jack was preparing his signature dish, a fusion of Earth techniques with alien ingredients. He'd seared the purple carrot citrus vegetables with Earth spices, made a sauce from shimmering blue fruits that tasted like truffles, and slow-cooked meat from a creature that changed color as it cooked. When time was called, the judges moved from station to station. They analyzed Master Processor Unit 7's floating nutrient spheres, tasted gas-transformed ingredients, and experienced direct energy transfers from various dishes. Finally, they reached Jack's station. His dish looked deceptively simple compared to the others. No floating elements, no glowing parts, just carefully prepared food arranged beautifully on a plate. The head judge, a being composed of pure energy, scanned the dish. "Interesting. Your thermal application is uneven, yet deliberate. The chemical reactions are complex and interconnected." Jack held his breath as they tasted his food. The judge's energy form flickered with surprise. This is, the judge paused. "You've created harmony from chaos. Each element enhances the others. The experience is greater than the mere sum of its nutrients." The scores were displayed. Jack had advanced to the next round, his primitive cooking placing third overall. Master Processor Unit 7 hovered nearby, its appendages twitching in what might have been annoyance. "Perhaps," the machine said slowly, "there are some things that cannot be replicated by pure calculation." Jack cleaned his station, already planning his next dish. The competition was far from over, but he'd proven something important. Sometimes the simplest methods could create the most extraordinary results. Jack sat in the station's observation deck, watching the stars while reviewing notes from the competition's medical team. What he read made him sit up straight in surprise. "This can't be right," he muttered, reading the section again. According to their tests, humans had nearly twice as many taste buds as most spacefaring species. Their sense of smell was among the most developed in the galaxy, beaten only by a few hunter species. Fascinating, isn't it? Blue appeared beside him, its color shifting slightly in the starlight. "We've been studying the results. Your species retained these enhanced senses while most others lost them to evolution. Advanced civilizations usually depend on technology for food analysis." Jack thought about all the times his grandmother had taught him to cook by smell and taste. "We never lost the connection to our food," he said softly. "We kept cooking by hand, growing gardens, exploring new flavors." Their conversation was interrupted by an alert. The next round's challenge had been announced early. Competitors would need to create 3 dishes using ingredients from their homeworlds. In the preparation area, Jack found boxes of fresh Earth ingredients had been teleported in. But what caught his eye was Master Processor Unit 7 hovering by his station, scanning his supplies. "Your world's plant diversity is excessive," the machine stated. "Over 20,000 edible species. Most developed worlds maintain only 15 to 20 essential nutrient sources." Jack picked up a fresh basil leaf, releasing its aroma. "Every plant tells a story," he explained. "This basil, my grandmother grew it in her window box. The smell reminds me of summer dinners." As he began organizing his ingredients, a crowd gathered. Earth's biodiversity had become a hot topic among the competition scientists. They were amazed by simple things like different types of apples or varieties of rice. But why maintain so many versions of similar nutrients? One researcher asked, watching Jack sort through his herbs. Jack held up 2 different kinds of mint. "Smell these," he suggested. The researcher's sensory appendages moved over each leaf. "They contain the same basic compound, but they're different," the alien said in surprise. "Exactly. Spearmint and peppermint. Same family, different character. Earth's diversity isn't just about nutrients, it's about possibilities." Master Processor Unit 7 interrupted their discussion. "The humans' methods are unnecessarily complex. My nutrient analysis shows that 3 synthesized compounds could provide the same nutritional value as all these plants." Jack smiled. "Would you like to make a small wager? Let me cook something for you using just Earth ingredients. If you can replicate the exact same experience with your synthesized compounds, I'll withdraw from the competition." The machine's processors whirred. Challenge accepted. Jack quickly prepared a simple caprese salad. Fresh tomatoes, basil, mozzarella, olive oil, and a pinch of salt. The machine scanned each ingredient thoroughly, then used its advanced systems to create a molecularly identical version. A panel of judges agreed to test both versions. They tried the machine's creation first. Technically perfect, nutritionally identical. Then they tasted Jack's salad. The difference was immediate. The judges' sensory organs buzzed with activity. Jack's dish had something the machine's version lacked. The subtle variations in each leaf of basil, the complexity of naturally ripened tomatoes, the slight inconsistencies that made each bite unique. "Impossible," Master Processor Unit 7 said, scanning the results. "The chemical compositions are identical. But the experience isn't," Jack explained. "Real ingredients have character, history, subtle differences. That's what makes cooking an art, not just science." The machine hovered silently for a moment. "Perhaps I have something to learn from primitive methods." As Jack prepared for the next round, he felt more confident than ever. Humanity's primitive connection to food, their developed senses, their appreciation for natural ingredients, their maintenance of biodiversity, wasn't a weakness. It was their secret weapon in the competition. Jack knew something was wrong the moment he opened his ingredient storage unit. The fresh herbs from Earth had wilted, and many vegetables showed signs of being exposed to extreme temperatures. This wasn't natural spoilage. Someone had tampered with the unit's preservation settings. 2 hours until the semi-final round. The announcement echoed through the station. Jack's heart raced. He'd planned his entire menu around these ingredients. Blue rushed over to his station, all 4 arms moving in agitation. The security systems show a breach in this section 6 hours ago, but no visual record exists. The alien's color darkened with concern. Someone used advanced technology to avoid detection. Jack looked at his ruined ingredients, then at his competition. Most were busy with their preparations, but he noticed Master Processor Unit 7 watching him intently from across the room. "Can we get new ingredients from Earth?" Jack asked. Blue's color shifted to a darker shade. "The teleport system is at maximum capacity with arriving delegates. The next available window is in 12 hours. Jack opened his grandmother's recipe book, its worn pages comforting in their familiarity. "Then we adapt," he said firmly. "What ingredients do we have access to?" The competition floor was a flurry of activity as Jack raced around, gathering what he could. Some alien vegetables he'd never worked with, others that only vaguely resembled Earth produce. He'd have to create something entirely new. As he started to set up his cooking station, another problem emerged. His stove wouldn't turn on. The diagnostic panel showed all systems working, but no heat came from the burners. "The power flow is being diverted," Blue said, scanning the unit. "Someone has hacked the station's energy distribution grid." Jack wiped sweat from his forehead. "No heat source, no fresh Earth ingredients. They're trying to force me to withdraw." He looked around the competition area. Other chefs were using their advanced molecular gastronomy tools and energy manipulators. His eyes fell on an old-fashioned preparation table, made of metal, and sitting unused in the corner. "Blue, is that table heat-resistant?" he asked. "Yes, it's made from cralloy metal. It can withstand extreme temperatures." "Why?" Jack grinned. "Because we're going back to basics. Really basic. Can you get me some fuel cells?" Understanding dawned in Blue's eyes. "You're going to make fire. In the station. The rules don't forbid it. They probably never thought anyone would try." While his competitors programmed their automated systems, Jack built a makeshift cooking surface using the metal table and carefully controlled fuel cells. It wasn't pretty, but it would give him the heat he needed. The judges were baffled when they saw his setup. "You intend to cook with actual combustion?" one asked, their crystalline structure flickering with surprise. "Sometimes the oldest methods are the most reliable," Jack replied, already working with his improvised ingredients. He was creating a dish his grandmother had taught him, one that could turn humble ingredients into something special. The heat from his makeshift stove wasn't as controlled as he'd like, but Jack could feel when it was right by instinct. He'd learned to cook on campfires and wood stoves long before he ever touched a professional kitchen. Master Processor Unit 7 hovered nearby, its appendages twitching. "Your primitive methods cannot possibly succeed. Withdraw now and maintain some dignity." Jack kept working, focusing on the sizzle of his pan, the smell of the food cooking. "You know what the difference is between you and me?" he asked the machine. "I don't just follow recipes. I understand food. When something goes wrong, I can adapt." As he cooked, the familiar smells began to draw a crowd again. Even with alien ingredients, even with improvised equipment, the fundamental truth remained. Good cooking came from understanding heat, ingredients, and timing. The judges approached his station, some looking skeptical, others curious. Jack plated his dish, a fusion of Earth techniques and alien ingredients unlike anything he'd made before. It wasn't what he planned to make. It wasn't perfect. But as the judges took their first bites, their expressions told him everything he needed to know. Sometimes, the greatest creations come from the biggest challenges. The final round of the competition began with an announcement that made the entire station buzz with excitement. Contestants must create a dish that represents the future of galactic cuisine. Jack stood at his station, now properly repaired after the previous day's sabotage attempt. The investigation had revealed that several competitors had worked together to tamper with his equipment, leading to their disqualification. Even Master Processor Unit 7 had been forced to withdraw after its involvement was discovered. "You have earned respect," Blue said, helping Jack organize his workspace. "Many species now see that there is wisdom in Earth's methods." Jack looked at the incredible array of ingredients before him. The judges had provided both Earth and alien ingredients to all remaining finalists. Most other competitors were ignoring the Earth products, sticking to their familiar advanced techniques. "Time to show them something new," Jack said, picking up both a regular Earth onion and a glowing blue vegetable from the Centauri system. "Something that brings both worlds together." As he worked, Jack remembered all he'd learned about alien tastes and preferences. He knew now that some species could taste colors, others could sense electrical charges in food, and some experienced flavors as musical notes. He started by caramelizing the Earth onions, letting their sweet aroma fill the air. Then he added the Centauri vegetables, which released a soft blue glow as they cooked. The combination created something entirely new, a sauce that both smelled incredible and gave off a gentle, pleasant light. "The human is combining traditional thermal application with bioluminescent properties," the announcer's voice boomed. "This technique has never been attempted in competitive cooking." Jack continued building his dish layer by layer. He used Earth cooking techniques, searing, braising, reducing, but applied them to alien ingredients in ways their original worlds had never considered. He treated each ingredient with respect, learning its properties and finding the best way to bring out its natural qualities. "Watch this," he told the gathering crowd as he added dried earth herbs to a pan of shimmering alien mushrooms. The mushrooms absorbed the herb flavors and began to pulse with new colors, creating a display that was both beautiful and delicious. The other finalists paused their work to observe. They had never seen anyone combine traditional and advanced ingredients this way. One competitor even abandoned their molecular gastronomy device to ask Jack about his techniques. "The secret," Jack explained while carefully plating his creation, "is understanding that good food speaks to both the body and the mind. It doesn't matter if you're from Earth or the far side of the galaxy. Everyone understands the comfort of a well-prepared meal." His final dish was a perfect fusion of worlds. Earth-style braised meat with alien vegetables that changed color based on flavor intensity, a sauce that glowed and shifted hues as it cooled, and garnishes that created tiny harmonic hums when they touched the tongue. The judges approached his station first. The head judge, a being of pure energy, seemed particularly interested. "You have created more than a meal," they said after experiencing the dish. "You have created a bridge between traditions." Other judges agreed. One noted how the dish could be enjoyed by multiple species in different ways. Some could eat it traditionally, others could absorb its energy patterns, and some could experience it through color and sound. "This is the future of galactic cuisine," Jack said confidently, "not abandoning our traditions, but bringing them together to create something new." As the judges moved on to taste other dishes, Jack noticed something remarkable. Competitors who had initially dismissed his primitive methods were now asking him questions, taking notes, and even attempting to incorporate some basic cooking techniques into their own dishes. An elderly alien approached his station, its tentacles moving with emotion. "In my youth," it said, "my species also cooked with fire and raw ingredients. We thought we had evolved beyond that. Perhaps we lost something precious in our rush for advancement." Jack smiled, understanding now that he had achieved something greater than just competing in a cooking contest. He had helped the galaxy rediscover the joy of real cooking, the art of bringing people together through food. 1 year after the competition, the Epicurean ring looked very different. Where there had once been only automated food processors and nutrient dispensers, now there were cooking stations with real flames, fresh ingredients, and chefs from dozens of species learning to cook by hand. Jack walked through the station's main promenade, smiling at the changes. The air was filled with different aromas, some familiar, some alien, all wonderful. His cooking school, Earth's Kitchen, had become one of the most popular destinations on the station. Teacher Jack called out a young crystalline being, rushing up to him with excitement glowing through its facets. "I made my first earth soup today. The vegetables turned brown when heated, just like you said they would." "That's called caramelization," Jack explained proudly. "You're learning to read the food, to understand how it changes with heat." The Galactic Council had declared Earth a culinary heritage site after the competition. Ships from across the galaxy now visited Earth to learn about its cooking traditions and collect recipes. But more importantly, other species had begun rediscovering their own lost cooking heritage. Blue, now Jack's assistant instructor, approached with a data tablet. "The Centaurians have uncovered ancient cooking texts from their pre-automation era," the alien reported excitedly. "They want to send 10 students to learn basic cooking techniques." Jack nodded, remembering how far they'd come. After winning the competition, he'd been offered his own restaurant on the station. Instead, he'd asked to open a school. Everyone should have the chance to create, to cook, to share food with others, he told the council. Even Master Processor Unit 7 had changed. The machine now sat in a corner of Jack's classroom, its processors humming as it analyzed the relationship between emotion and flavor, trying to understand why food made with care tasted better than its perfectly synthesized versions. "I have calculated 2,547 variables that affect taste," the machine announced as Jack passed by. "But I still cannot fully explain why your grandmother's chicken soup recipe produces a 42% stronger emotional response than my identical molecular recreation." "Some things can't be measured," Jack replied kindly. "They have to be felt." The station's central dining hall had been transformed as well. Instead of separate sections for different species' nutritional needs, there were now long tables where beings from across the galaxy sat together, sharing meals and stories. Some ate solid food, others absorbed energy, but all were part of the same community. A group of alien children rushed past, wearing mini-chef hats made to fit their various head shapes. They were heading to Jack's special junior cooking class, where they learned simple Earth recipes adapted for their species' needs. "Did you ever imagine this?" Blue asked, watching the diverse crowd. "When you first arrived with your Earth ingredients and simple stove?" Jack pulled out his grandmother's recipe book, now translated into 27 alien languages. Its pages were worn and stained from constant use, but still held together. He'd added new recipes too, fusions of Earth and alien cuisines that his grandmother would never have imagined. "Food has always brought people together on Earth," he said. "Now it's bringing together the galaxy." In the kitchen classroom, his next class was gathering. There were beings of all shapes and sizes, some with tentacles, others with crystalline structures, some that floated and others that crawled. All of them were there to learn the art of cooking. Jack tied on his apron and picked up a knife, ready to teach another class about the joy of creating food by hand. As he looked at his eager students, he remembered something his grandmother used to say: "Good food is a universal language, spoken through the heart and understood by the soul." She had been right, more than she could have ever known. Across the vastness of space, through all the differences between species and cultures, the simple art of cooking had created a new kind of unity. And it had all started with a simple pot of soup in a small Seattle restaurant. "All right, everyone," Jack announced to his class. "Today we're going to learn about the magic of making bread."